want you to do me a favor. Stand up here and pick that up, and I'll just do it. And tell me what's inside.
You mean we gotta move?
You gotta move. I'm sorry.
Pick it up.
Pick it up.
Can't open it.
No, don't do that. Tell me what's inside.
Shake it.
Hey, you can do what you want to. Tell me what's inside. Now you gotta tell me everything that's inside. Next. Ed, you may get excused because you're back.
I'm gonna tell you the ammo's inside.
There's something in the top of it rolling around.
Okay, that's part of it. But what kind of ammo?
Got a garbage can around here?
What kind of ammo?
Put that back in there.
What else is in it?
Shotgun ammo, cleaning kit.
Now, there's probably a set of headphones in there.
Headphones, okay.
Sounds like maybe a pencil.
What do you think's in it, Joseph?
Watch out, it'll blow up.
Probably with me standing here.
Something falling out of it.
It's not one piece anymore.
So much for that bright idea.
A brick?
Well, there is a brick in it, so you got two. We don't know what kind of ammo. What color is the brick?
I'm not red.
Well, there is a red brick in it.
Red brick of 22.
Now, red brick of 22.
Sold. I'll take it.
How would you like to have to not be able to use the handle? How would you like to have to carry that thing with you through life? You know, it'd get old, but the deal is you could never put it down. You always have to carry it. Now, you maybe beside of it when you sleep. Okay?
You get some arm muscles pretty quick.
Yeah, now there's some 44 Magnum shells in here in a box. There's some water that has been in a trash can for forever. And there are some
What else is in the bottom?
44 Magnum bullets up here.
Can't
That's a special bullet right there because I was hunting in the mountains this past year up in East Tennessee, and some of my friends, boys I went to high school with, were bear hunting, and we was talking about it. He said, "Well, when you boys go back up the holler there where your cabin is," said that bear may come across through there. I said, "Shoot him." I said, "Well, I got my 44 Magnum." And he pulled this out. He said, "Right there's your bear bullet." He said, "That will knock them down." So that's a special bear bullet there. Don't see many bears down this part of the world, though. Got some more water in here. There is a brick down the bottom and all kinds of different junk in it. Now, we're going to talk tonight about what a drag. If you had a whole box of rocks, now, some of you may not know this, but I'm actually trying to lose some weight, which happens a lot because, I'll lose weight, then I'll get fat again, then lose weight again, and I'm sure that looking at the video right now, anybody will be able to say, well, he's still not lost much. But we're going to talk tonight about what a drag. Does your load seem too heavy? And our purpose tonight is learning how to handle difficult situations. Let me tell you the story here. The frosty morning, Carl had a little bit of dread for Charlie as he tells this story, and he had entered his mind, but just a little bit. Not that he was not afraid of hunting with it cold. He'd hunting with it cold, and cold weather it didn't cause him to stay at home. But he knew that he was going to be in the woods, and he was going to be hunting all day long. It was from daylight to dark, one of those proposition type things. And they were going to be hunting unfamiliar property. He knew it wasn't going to be warm for the next 12 to 13, 14 hours, whatever daylight would last, that he could legally hunt. Now, the only thing they had was a crude map of the new area, new territory they were going to go in, and so they didn't have any. Sure, they kind of had a crude outline of where the property line was, and that type of thing. Now, but the story had started the week before because Charlie's from Kentucky and he lives in Kentucky, so he decided to. He was hunting in Tennessee. And they had tagged out on Friday. He had intended to hunt the whole week in Tennessee, but he had tagged out on Friday. So they made the decision, him and his buddy, to go to northwest Kentucky for opening day there. Now, he stopped at his house. Now, how many of you have ever done this? He stopped at his house, changed clothes, got a few more little things, dropped off his deer, he got clean clothes and said hi to his family, and then was out the door and went again. Okay? How many of you, I see a few people have done that before. Now, they drove most of the night, then they got to where they're in the new state with the new tags, they were ready to go, and had dreams of a big buck. They got in place, and it was before dark, before daylight. It's still dark. And he said it's amazing how hunting places look so good in the dark. So they got set up and a pop-up blind with the camera and all that. And as they got settled in for opening day to open of the season there, and the eastern sky began to dawn. And the plan was for him. See, Charlie shoots video of hunts, and the plan was for him to shoot first, and his buddy to run the camera, and then they were going to switch. But shortly after it got daylight, Doug, his friend, spotted a buck that was working a scrape over on the scrape line, and Charlie decided he was going to pass on him. But Doug said that the buck could wear his tag and ride in his truck, so they decided to switch, and Doug run the gun, and Charlie run the camera. So they switched, and the Remington announced the opening day had begun, and the buck was done. Okay? Now, they stayed around there about 11:30. They thought they'd go a little deeper into the woods and set up for the rest of the day. Well, they got down there an hour later. They were another mile deeper. Now, they were already a mile and a half into the woods when they shot that first buck. So they go another mile on down in the woods, 2.5 miles from the truck. They're down there, and they're in full-blown predator mode, he says here. They're ready for the hunt. I mean, they're going to shoot something, and he was determined to kill that bruiser buck or to shoot a doe right at dark, and so if the opportunity would present itself. So after a few minutes before legal shooting time was over, he let loose with a blast from his Remington and took a big doe to the car. The opening day was over. Now they have 2 deers down. That was a great ending to a wonderful but exhausting week. But now the problem is the real work begins. Have you ever shot a deer and then asked yourself, why in the heck did I shoot that goofy thing? Because you have to drag it out. I've wondered about that.
Catch 50 fish and then say, now I got to clean them.
Now I got to clean them. It's fun to catch them. But anyway, you're right. The real work begins then. Well, Doug had, the problem they had to drag his deer 2.5 miles. But the problem they had was they had all that camera equipment and all that stuff, so they had to make a trip back to the truck to take the equipment back, come back and get his deer, drag it back, and to make it worse, they had to drag it across a heavily rutted field, a flooded soybean field. And so, it really heavy rutted, which was really hard. So they had to take the equipment back and then go back and get the deer. It took them 6 hours.
Like it ain't a good four-wheeler.
Well, except a lot of places, national forest, four-wheelers are not legal. In some of these places, it's not legal to hunt with them. So, sounds to me like they need to find them a closer buck. But anyway,
That'd work too.
That would work too. Now, during the 6 hours, he said one of the things that happened in that 6 hours is sometimes they'd get to grumbling and complaining, but when one of them would start complaining, the other one would pick them up, and you know how it is, sometimes, when you work in a team, it's a whole lot easier to do that. But during that 6 hours, they chose to kill the deer, and so he knew it's his responsibility to get to the truck and ultimately to get that deer to the table. Now, as they would complain, they'd pick each other up. Often in life, we find ourselves in difficult and tough situations. Frequently, our first response is what?
Give up.
Give up. Complain.
Get frustrated, get mad.
Get mad, get frustrated. We find ourselves in a difficult situation. What's some other things that happen when we get in a difficult situation?
Just quit.
Just quit.
You wouldn't say a bad word, would you?
No, you're not. No, don't bad words, guys. Okay.
You pick up that walk behind trimmer and you throw it across the yard.
That makes you feel better, don't it?
Yeah, it makes you feel better. Okay.
And 3 weeks later, somebody brings you a new handheld trimmer, so you don't pick up that walk behind trimmer.
So the moral of the story is, throw your trimmer and you get a new one? No, I don't think that's okay.
No, it was a preventative.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Let me read the last. We're on page 33 now, guys. I'm going to read this last paragraph and under the campfire stories. God never leads us where He cannot keep us. He also never calls us to leave something unfinished. We're on page 33. Therefore, let's look at the Lord and lean on each other, so that we might say, like the Apostle Paul, I have fought a good fight, I have finished my course, I have kept the faith. In the end, our goal must be to remain faithful and focused even in the face of daunting and discouraging times. Now, the invitation here, as we begin in our Bible binocular, let me go back over and read. And our text, our focal passage is out of Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 through 30. It says, Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. For I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Now let's talk about the invitation to lay it down. What do we try to handle alone? Let me write some things on the board here. What do we try to handle alone? What?
Everything.
Everything. Oh, the big all, eh? Everything. What else fits underneath the everything? How about this? How about sickness? I have a theory about life, guys. One of them, my theory about life is this: when we're really sick, we're not really sick. But when we just got a cold, we're dying. You ever notice that? It's direct correlation, you know. If you're really sick, if you've got cancer or something, you pretend like it doesn't exist. But, okay? What else do we try to handle?
Putting decoys out by yourself open in the morning.
Decoys out open in the morning. Okay. What else?
Having raised 2 daughters, drama.
We try to handle drama alone. Okay.
If you've raised 2 girls through the teenage years, you know exactly what I'm
Yes.
talking
If
about.
you've raised children through those years, you know exactly. What else do we try to handle alone?
Well, couldn't anybody build that house the way I can build it? I built it by myself.
That's what we try to handle house building.
Construction.
Okay. What else do we try to handle alone? Anything? Do we ever try to handle spiritual things alone? How about hurts? What about this? You ever try to handle anger alone? I realize sometimes it's better to be alone.
I have to say that better. Now, when you say alone, you mean like people alone, or?
Alone is in alone
Under your own power.
under your own power and
No.
You can't ask your psychologist about it.
what else? Anything?
Money.
Money? Yep. We try to handle our finances without consulting God. We try to handle buying things on our own
Have
without
you prayed about buying that gun?
without consulting. Pray about you pray about buying that gun.
Actually, I haven't.
You ought to make sure it's okay by him, you know.
Yeah.
We're talking about the wife, you know. You ought to make sure it's
Yeah,
okay.
better
by
make
him.
sure it's okay with him. Well, this is what he says here, the invitation to lay it all down. Okay? Matthew 11:28 says this, Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. What do you think the rest here, what do you think that word rest there means?
Peace.
Peace. Rejuvenation is, Charlie writes here, physical rejuvenation.
Ease your suffering.
Ease your suffering, okay? Replenishing and restoration of the spiritual part too. You know, we can get, have you ever been tired in your spirit, just tired? Not just physically. Mentally and spiritually, just drained, just have given all you can give. Well, the Bible tells us that Jesus said, Come to me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Now, some of you have had babies and have got new babies and that kind of thing. Sometimes you just need some rest. Now, here's a question. Page number 34, checking station at the top. Here's the question. Are you willing to humble yourselves before the Lord and receive His help?
Yes, sir.
Most definitely.
Throw it all on the line.
What's some things that keeps us from humbling ourselves? We probably put some of these up on the board before in times past. What are some things that keep us from humbling ourselves?
Pride.
Oh, that's that four-letter word again, ain't it? Hold on, let me get that one up here before we forget it. No, we're not gonna forget pride though, are we?
What, ego?
Pride?
God's got more important stuff to worry about than my little problem.
Too small a problem. For God. Okay? What are some other things that keep us from humbling ourselves? How about this? How about we think we know it all?
Or we think it won't do any good. We just give up.
Okay? We give up. What else? What else keeps us from humbling ourselves before God? I know you boys never have heard of this, but how about discouragement? And even depression. Some of the greatest men in the Bible suffered from that booger right there.
What will my buddies think?
What will my buddies think? Others' opinions. Okay? What else keeps us from humbling ourselves?
I think lack of knowledge that, just knowing what you can turn to, you know.
Okay.
Lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge of knowing that God is the help
That's
that is there.
That's it.
Lack of understanding
Through
of
His
the truth.
word, everything.
Right. True. That's a good point. Good point. Anybody else? All right. Now, let's move along. And what keeps us from humbling ourselves? The next one that he talks about here is in point number 2, the instructions from the Lord. Look what he says in Matthew chapter number 11, verse 29. It says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest unto your souls." Now, what are some modern day yokes? What are some things that we yoke?
Our job.
Okay.
Bills.
Bills.
Family responsibilities.
Okay. Okay, let's stop right there. I'm just going to keep adding letters to that word. Keep on going. Let's stop right there and think outside the box here, guys. What are some modern day yokes? Literal yokes. Now, I realize that we don't do this much now. But how many of you have ever seen the collars that they put around the horses' necks? You know, growing up on the farm. And
Harnesses.
harnesses, yeah, right. You got the harness, and then you had the collar. Well, what about anybody ever heard of the Alaskan race? What was that?
I did the
I did the
right.
right, right. What is there any yokes used there? The dog sled harness. Remember, I did a rod. You know, did you see them? The way they train those, sometimes it's pretty neat to watch it. Is they'll tie their four-wheeler and let the dogs run and pull their four-wheeler. You know, do that in the summertime. You know, when there's no snow. The dogs will never. What are some other kind of yokes? Now we think back inside the box again. Now, how about you got family responsibility? What's another one on the yokes that yoke us down?
Well, you can also have outside influences,
Okay.
Friends.
others. Yeah.
Does somebody else's opinion matter to us? Before you answer that, say, well, no. Yes,
Most
it does.
definitely.
Most definitely does. Our children, our youth today are living under extreme peer pressure, and we don't really realize how much. They really have a lot of peer pressure. Okay? Listen to what Jesus said there now. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. Now, when it talks about learning of Him, what do you think it means to learn of Him?
Learn His ways.
Learn His ways. Okay. What else? Now, when we think about meekness, when, you know, it says here, for I am meek and lowly. What do you think about when you think about meekness?
Slow to anger.
Not showy, not standoffish, not.
Humble.
Humble. Okay.
Slow to anger.
Slow to anger. Okay. Do you think weak?
No.
Not necessarily.
Mamby-pamby kind of?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. You think incapable of standing up for yourself, taking care of things? Is that what meekness means?
Soft spoken is a good way.
Soft spoken, that may be part of it too.
Sometimes it takes more of a man to be meek than
Yes,
to be the
most
bully.
definitely. Most definitely.
Meek is not weak. Now, let me read something Charlie wrote here. It said, the Lord modeled meekness and gives us the occasion to secure this attitude for our lives. Now, I'm on the last paragraph on page number 34. And then he said, this meekness is not weakness, but rather it is power under control. What does it take a greater man to do? To destroy something or to control himself and not destroy it? That's meekness. Power, destructive power under control. You know, men are a lot stronger than women, physically. You know, I know women sometimes we've got a group that want to make them equal in all things. I'm sorry, you know, that's why they don't play in the NBA. That's why they don't play in the NFL, because they're just physically not as strong.
There's this
So-
girl who says she's getting ready to go out for the NBA, and
Yeah, I know.
but she's not going to be strong enough to. put
She's
up
not.
somebody
She
like
won't even
LeBron
make.
or
She won't even
somebody.
make the practice team.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. She's not fast enough. She's just not got it.
One of the big guys hit her, she's down.
I know. So it's there's just a difference there. But now see, the difference is simply this too. We've got to stop and realize that because we're physically stronger, there has to be a meekness about us, not to physically. We have to have that meekness, that control of the power. Now, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about weakness? Now, a lot of times it's usually, you know, somebody thinks weak, but it's not. And so we need to understand that. Number 3 here talks about the introduction of freedom from heavy loads. Now, we could sit here and discuss what a heavy load is, and a heavy load can be anything from a too big a heavy bag to lift up, put in a truck. You know, we've been cleaning out some flower beds at the house, and the guys that did it, you know, I said, "Oh, boys, don't worry about it. I'll take those off and take them to the dump tomorrow." But they'd fill these 70-gallon or these big garbage bags, filled them full of dirt. You know how heavy those things were? Too heavy. I got them in the truck, got them out. Man, it was really too heavy. It took everything I could muster to get them up there. So a heavy load can be something too heavy to lift, right? Heard stories about in the days when they would use teams of horses and they would pull these loads, and what they would do, sometimes they had to be careful not to overload when they were logging with them, and not overload the horse. Because what would happen when they'd overload the horse would try to pull it. When he could not, he would give up. And then they could almost literally take every one of the logs off the sled, and he still couldn't pull it. Now, have you ever gotten so burdened down that you just could not pull the sled even if it was empty? Just overwhelmed. How do we find freedom from those heavy loads? Look what it says in Matthew 11:30. It says, "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." This yoke, he said, it is easy. Romans 12:1 said, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Romans 12:2 says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. How do we renew our mind? Through refreshing in Him, through the water of the Word, spending time. And listen, the greatest thing I love about hunting is you can get out on the hillside or get out in the woods and make that connection, and you can renew your mind. I don't know about you, but my mind stays cluttered about half the time with so many things and so many things I need to get done, I don't get done, that kind of thing. And if I'm not careful, I get all clutter-brained. That's why I babble so much sometimes. But he says here, be not conformed to the world, but be transformed with the renewing of your mind. Man, I think one of the greatest things about the outdoors is this: we have an opportunity to get away and to just put the world behind us for that short time when we're in a duck blind or out in a fishing boat or in a duck or whatever, deer blind, or out on a rabbit hunt or whatever. We can just kind of kick it out of gear and allow God to renew our mind with that freshness. Now, that you may prove what is good and acceptable. He says, therefore, Charlie writes, therefore when we walk with the Lord and accept that which He gives to us, life becomes more uncomplicated and our loads of burden become light. We also must understand that the requirements of the Christian life are not burdensome. You know, there are a lot of people who would pile a bunch of do's and don'ts and that kind of thing on to us. But, you know, God's called us to live our life the best we can, and that's why we have an advocate with the Father. Now, notice that it said the burden of a living Christian life here is not a burden, but it's freedom. It's freedom. It says that we may know, that we may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Now, checking station over here on the last page and under women and out. I want to ask question number 4 here. Are you willing to let the Lord have control of your life? One of the things that burdens us down, guys, is when we do not let loose and let Him. When we hold on to things so tight, we get so frustrated and so many things get in the way. But if we could just let it loose, are you willing to let Him have control of your life? Just a question, ask yourself. Number 5, what are some things that we can show that we're following, that show that we're following the leadership of the Lord? The sportsman's tip. It is wise to plan out all aspects of your hunt, including how you're going to retrieve your game. Years ago, I've got a brother-in-law, and he and I went hunting together one day. We hunted together occasionally, but he says, "Well, I'm going up here on top of the hill." Yeah, he went up on top of the hill, all right. And I asked him, I said, "There's not any deer down here in the bottom?" We walked for at least 2 hours in the dark, pitch dark. And I asked him, I said, "Bill," I said, "how are we going to get it out if we kill one?" "Oh, we'll drag it out." I never was so glad in my life that I didn't have that burden to drag it out. Poor Charlie, 2.5 hours back in the woods, no four-wheeler to drag it out. I was so glad I didn't kill anything that day. Now, I did kill one time that we were on such steep incline, we could see the truck 300 yards above us. And we literally drug that deer 1.5 miles down the hill and tried to stay in front of it. Because we'd drag it down there and it'd pass it sometimes. And what was so bad though, it passed you on the wrong side of the bushes. It'd go around one side while you was trying to drag it around the other. But we drug that deer 1.5 miles down the hill to keep from dragging it 300 yards up. There are some burdens that we physically can't do. Now, season of growth. Becoming solely dependent upon Jesus Christ for every aspect of your life is an essential step along the path of spiritual growth. I guess when it comes down to it, this lesson's all been about one simple truth, I believe, and that is we need to let go sometime and learn how to handle difficult situations by allowing Him to handle them instead of us.
If you don't know that you can turn things over to the Lord, you better seek that.
Right.
That guidance.
That you better come to that understanding. Okay?